I'm just going to give a little bit of history on the certification program of the water and wastewater operators in the province. And then near the end of my talk, we'll be talking about some of the workforce stuff that we've been involved with. In 1975, Alberta started a voluntary certification program. And in February 1982, the Clean Water Act regulation was amended to require the day-to-day operation of all municipal plants be supervised by one or more certified operator. Hence, in 1983, the first mandatory water and wastewater operator certification program was put in place. In 1993, EPA was proclaimed, and it was further expanded to include distribution and collection systems. In January of 2005, we made significant changes to our program, and I'll talk about those a little bit later. And the Association of Boards of Certification is a North American association that deals with the certifying authorities across North America and actually some international committees now as well. As I mentioned, in 2005, we made significant changes, including mandatory entry-level training, changing our renewal period, and making continuing education a requirement for operators to retain certification. Some of these things were brought into effect primarily because of the Walkerton inquiry. So we want to ensure that that kind of thing did not happen in Alberta. Pursuant to the EPA, each municipal water and wastewater facility is required to have certified operators supervising or carrying out the day-to-day operations of each facility or system. The operational complexity of waterworks or wastewater systems will determine what the certification requirements are. At the very least, each regulated facility must have at least one certified operator certified to the level of the facility. The more complex the facility, the higher level of certification is required, and in fact, more certified operators may be required. The information on how many operators are required and level of facility you have is actually determined in either the operating approval or the registration or by the code. Okay, there's 4 categories of classifications for the systems. There's water treatment facilities, water distribution systems, wastewater treatment facilities, and wastewater collection systems. There's 5 levels of certification, including small systems, level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. Water and wastewater treatment facilities are classified based on the complexity of the facility, and distribution and collection systems are strictly classified based on population served. The drinking water legislation, Part 7, is where it describes the legal responsibilities that are required for the persons responsible for the waterworks system. And the wastewater legislation, the statute governing the ownership in wastewater systems, is the stormwater drainage regulation. Certified operators play a vital role in the providing safe drinking water, as well as protecting the environment in each community. The responsibilities of the operators are many. They're not just your ordinary laborer. They are highly skilled, and it's a very important job. A lot of communities, in the smaller municipalities, the operator wears many, many hats. He's not just the water treatment plant operator. He may very well be the snowplow remover. He could be the gradier operator. He could be the dog catcher, and he could also be the grave digger. Small town Alberta, that's a reality. Okay, but gone are the days, or I'm hoping are gone are the days, where they're considered just a laborer. These people are highly skilled, and if they screw up, people die. So the municipalities have to start thinking of them as more of a skilled workforce rather than just someone to put out in the water treatment plant and hopefully get you some safe drinking water. When operators apply for certification, I'm going to go through some of the steps of the certification program just briefly on this. When an operator applies for certification to Alberta Environment, their application comes to our office and is actually reviewed by the ministerially appointed Water and Wastewater Operator Certification Advisory Committee. A committee makes recommendations to the department on just about anything concerning certification. They meet as required, usually 3 times a year. 2-day meetings type thing, review applications for certification, certification program policy, facility classifications, applications for renewal, examinations. They do evaluation of training that the operators take for their continuing education. They determine if and when there will be certification program fees. Currently, Alberta is the only, I believe, in North America that may not charge for certification. It is free to write the certification exam. And any other thing that comes up that might need to be addressed by the Certification Advisory Committee. Certification requirements. At each level, there are different requirements for each level of certification. Different education requirements, different training requirements, and different experience requirements. Small systems certification. As I mentioned, there's 4 levels of facility classification, but 5 levels of certification. Facility classification starts at level 1. Small systems certification is a subcategory of level 1. A small system is a class 1 facility, excluding surface water or groundwater under the direct influence, with a population of less than 500 if it's a water facility, or if it's a class 1 facility, wastewater, with a population of less than 500. Then small systems certification would be the requirement for that facility. I've just put down what the different requirements are for small systems. The completion of the small water and or small wastewater training. The Operators Association has that training. They have it in a classroom, in a home study or a correspondence format, and an online format. So it's not something that they can't do from home. They can do it in their community to get the training that's required. After they completed their necessary requirements, they can apply to the department to write the certification exam. Level 1, you have to have grade 12 or GED, and in brackets I put or equivalent. Just recently, we've changed it to include if you have a journeyman trade certificate, that we consider it equivalent of grade 12 or GED. You must have 1 year of municipal operations experience, and you must complete one of the following, either the entry-level training course or the level 1 certification prep course, or be a graduate of the NATE Water and Wastewater Technician program. If you have those requirements, then you can write the certification exam. Level 2, grade 12, same education, 3 years of approved municipal operations experience and at least 1 year of experience after obtaining level 1. Then you can apply to write level 2. Level 3 and level 4 get a little more complicated. They are for the more complex facilities in the province where post-secondary education is actually a requirement. You will notice that there is a post-secondary education or continuing education units requirement for both level 3 and 4. If an operator doesn't have the formal post-secondary education in a science-based type degree or diploma, they can acquire what we call CEUs, or continuing education units. We consider 45 CEUs the equivalent to 1 year of approved post-secondary education. Where that operator gets that training from, and as long as it is approved training, they can take it wherever they want. So that's where we're looking for the smaller community colleges or whatever to maybe step up, start doing a little bit more training in the water and wastewater field. Right now, there's a ton of training on our approved list. But having said that, there's still a lot of training that could be done. The smaller municipalities struggle to get their operators out there to get the CEUs that they require, because CEUs not only are required to write at the higher levels, but they are required to retain certification, which is my next topic. Renewal and continuing education. Once an operator is certified, their certificate is good for 3 years. After 3 years, they have to apply to have it renewed. Now, depending on the level of certification that they hold, it'll be dependent on how many CEUs they are required to renew. They are also required to have at least 1 year of experience in the 3 years in that renewal period to keep their certification active. Once they apply and show us that they've taken the required CEUs, they get another certificate good for another 3 years. Operator shortages. That's part of the reason why we're here today. In 2005, Alberta Environment and the Operators Association joined together and did a survey. The survey concluded at that time that we were going to be losing 50% of our certified operators within the next 5 to 10 years. Well, we're in that right now. And I can tell you right now, they are retiring. Having said that, there seems to be a pretty good steady increase in the number of certified operators in the province. A lot of it is from operators coming from out of province, taking jobs here, but that's whatever. We need to have the certified operators. If they come from other provinces, that's fine too. Alberta Environment, a few years ago, through the Alberta Water for Life funding, we had designated funding for a pilot program on operator consortiums, where we hired a consultant who went out and built a template for the smaller communities where they could work together and share operators jointly instead of having one operator in a small town with a population of 300, another operator, 10 miles down the road, another village, 150 people, another operator. They could sign an agreement and also just share their resources. That pilot program went very well. In fact, several communities continue to use that, and we encourage it for regional operations. We also did a pilot program for emergency operator backup. And while we thought there was a big need for that, in the entire time of the pilot, only 20 municipalities took part in that. And some of it was for even just a phone call to say, I have a question, can someone help me? In some of the other places, it was where their one and only operator quit, and we sent, through our resources, sent someone out to work at that municipality and work there and help them until they can get someone fully certified. They also gave us some money to update and evergreen the Alberta Environment Certification Exam questions to ensure that they're technology correct, that they're relevant. We also had some money given for updating the Level 1 certification preparation manual that the operators use in their Level 1 certification prep course. Reciprocity. A couple minutes ago, you heard me talk about operators coming from other provinces. Alberta's always been the place where the other provinces come to work. We've always had a need for operators. Well, back in '83 when I joined this program, we were probably getting 1 or 2 applications for certification by reciprocity a year. Now we're getting 3 or 4 a month, maybe more, depending. We had a reciprocity agreement that was signed back in '77 and then updated in '98 with the certifying authorities across Canada. And what that meant was that if an operator got certified in another province, came to Alberta, applied to us, and showed us that they got certified the same way that an operator would have got certified here, we'd give them the equivalent certificate without further education requirements or exam. Since then, we've had the introduction of TILMA and the Agreement on Internal Trade. And the Agreement on Internal Trade was signed by the labour ministers across Canada. And while in theory, the Agreement on Internal Trade is a good thing, it's making mobility for people to move across Canada without restrictions, it is in fact in the water and wastewater field taken it to its lowest denominator. Instead of bringing the programs up, it actually dropped it down because there were some provinces that still didn't have a grade 12 requirement, or they don't have continuing education requirement for renewal. The Canadian Water and Wastewater Operator Certification Best Practice Committee kind of grew out of that. It actually grew out of the Reciprocity Committee that we would sit down with certifying authorities across Canada, and we developed the Canadian Water and Wastewater Operator Certification Best Practices Committee. That committee has been working for the last couple of years to develop the best practices for the water and wastewater operator certification programs across Canada. That means that some of the things we made changes to in our program, we've done to bring it up to the Canadian best practices standards. It also ensures that when an operator comes from another province and they come to Alberta, that they would meet our requirements here. So it kind of helps us in the Agreement on Internal Trade area. We are, we may be, like I said, we may be getting 3, 4 a month. I get more calls. I get daily calls from operators coming from, or applying or on different jobs in Alberta. So there is a great deal of mobility in this field, and it's not hard to get your certification transferred one from the other. There are a number of operators from BC that are working in and out of the Fort McMurray area. They're certified in BC, and they've applied here, and when they were here in Alberta, they're under an Alberta Environment Certificate. These are the websites I talked about. That's the link to the Alberta Environment Certification Program website. The other one, to get to that website, the actual easiest way is actually go to the Operators Association website, shorter address, and they have a link right to it. It just says Alberta Environment Certification. You click on it, and it takes you right to our certification website. On that website, you will find the program guidelines. You will find the training that's approved. You will find applications for certification. You'll find the FAQs on how to obtain certification, on how to retain certification. You will find out the forms just to require, if your college or school is putting on water and wastewater training and you wanted to accredit it for CEUs, the form is there to be filled out. So there's a lot of information that you can find just on that website alone. On that website, there's also an email address that goes to my email. So if you have any questions, you can email me. And that pretty much concludes my talk, but I'll open it up to any questions. The question was, is there a cost to become certified? Alberta Environment, like I mentioned previously, does not charge to write the Alberta Environment Certification exam. But for level 1 or small systems, there's mandatory training that is required. That is through the Operators Association, so there is a fee to take that training, but there is no actual fee to obtain certification or to renew your certification. Good question. Thanks, Jerry. So as of last week, there was 2,413. So there has been, I would say even from 9 years ago, I think we were about 1,700. So while it doesn't look like a large amount, that's still a good increase. We just need more because the smaller municipalities, when their operator leaves, they're finding it a real challenge to replace them. I know some of the other provinces, when their renewal process, you are required to take core competency type training. So we might be looking at something like that in the future. It's not at the point where it's majorly discussed right now, but we could be looking at something where in a renewal, if someone holds a water treatment certificate, they might have to show actually a portion of their CEUs taken in water treatment instead of management or first aid. But right now, I don't see anything. The biggest challenge I hear all the time is, I've taken all the training. There's nothing left for me to take. That's not true. I said, well, obviously, I haven't looked at the list because right now the list has over 800 courses that have been reviewed and approved for training. Now, a lot of them are not online or correspondence or home study type training, which means that when the operator needs to take training, he's got to leave to take it. So there is a big gap in maybe the home study or correspondence type training that could be offered. But a lot of operators just don't seem to be aware that a lot of the training that they take normally every day, like I say, the first day of the confined space, is worth continuing education. So their biggest challenge is they say there's not enough training, but that is the million-dollar question. Small municipalities do struggle with paying their operators. And in some municipalities, they are small, so small that even the guy is a volunteer. He doesn't get paid at all. So there's no wage. But when you go up to the larger municipalities, like the regional municipality Wood Buffalo, they have the highest paid operators in North America. So that's really tough. Now, having said that, I know the regional municipality is looking for 5 new operators. So even they are having difficulty hanging on to the operators. When we did that survey in 2005, we found that there was a huge gap between the volunteers to the top-end operator. But it seemed like the mean time at that time was between $50,000 and $60,000 a year. So you're going to find that the smaller municipalities really have a hard time paying that. But it's something that they have to look at. They got to stop looking at it as like I said, just a laborer position. It's a very important position within that municipality. That operator, if he screws up, people will die or get sick. So it's not just a blue-collar job. It needs to be recognized as something that they need to pay for. Good question. If the operator comes to Alberta with his valid certificate, and let's say he doesn't have grade 12 or anything, he has grade 10 but he got it based on his experience. When he comes to Alberta, we are forced to give him the certificate at whatever level he's required to have, that he holds. But at that point, he becomes under our program and must meet our requirements. So he still has to do the continuing education, so then he can continue to renew that certificate as long as he keeps active. But if he plans to go to a higher level of certification, then he has to abide by our regulations, which stipulate that he has to have a grade 12 or GED. So if he's going to go up, he's going to eventually have to follow our rules. Actually, a couple of years ago, we did, like I mentioned, we use an ABC-based program, and our questions come out of Iowa, but they are Alberta questions. Our questions have been vetted through our experts. They're Alberta questions. ABC does partner in the States with a company that does offer online certification exams, and some of the states have been moving towards them. The problem is the company that they use in the States has one office in Canada, and it's in Toronto. So that's a little far to go to write a certification exam. We did some preliminary looking at it a couple of years ago, and right now with the changes in environment and water, and it's not something on our books right now to look at to move that way. In the future, would it be something we'd like to do? By all means. We would love to be able to open it up and have more exam sessions, because I can tell you, when you have one exam session in November in Edmonton and Calgary, and you have 200 people writing at each one, it's a tough go. It would be nice to be able to offer more, but I can't see it in the next couple of years anyways. But it is something we've looked at and may go towards if we can find some way to make it work here. Out of country, we do have actually quite a few operators that have come from the States, and we have granted reciprocity to them if they come from a state that uses an ABC-based program. And we also usually make them take either the entry-level training course or the level 1 course, just to prove that they know the difference between metric and imperial. But we have granted certification by reciprocity. We also have a number of out-of-country operators that have come and that have worked in different countries, and usually what happens with the out-of-country is that they're required to at least get 6 months of current Canadian experience before the Certification Advisory Committee will look at their out-of-country. But we have had a large influx of operators from different countries that have backgrounds, and their experience does count towards the certification program.